Bendiciones, my house of realness. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something different. I normally do not talk about YouTube drama and things that's been going on, but I have been following Trisha and Ethan Klein on the Frenemies H3 podcast. If you guys aren't familiar, I'm going to go ahead and link all the videos down below pertaining to this particular story. Since then, David and a couple of members of his vlog squad has had allegations come forward against them. And this story in particular about one of the allegations, and the reason why I'm using the word allegations is because I'm a small creator and I don't need nobody coming for me or suing me or doing anything like that. We ain't got time for that. But the reason why this story compelled me to speak on it so much is because I have a personal attachment to it. And I feel like this person's story in particular is being glazed over now that these other allegations have surfaced. And I think that what has happened to this individual is truly disgusting and deplorable. And I have something to say, so I'm going to speak up and use my voice to say it. If you guys are wondering what I'm talking about David Dobrik and the Vlog Squad. One of the former Vlog Squad members by the name of Seth was victim of a prank that was played on him that was put out publicly on the YouTube platform. I will give you guys a quick synopsis of what went down. So David had a prank set up with Jason Nash, and why it has relevance with Trisha Paytas and Ethan on the H3 podcast is because they have been the ones openly speaking about what has been going on and everything that's going on with the Vlog Squad and David Dobrik. So I have been following this story because I've reached out to Ethan and the H3 podcast since they're here in California, and they give small creators a platform to share their stories. I reached out to Ethan because I wanted to see if he can help me bring awareness and bring attention to what I've been going through over on TikTok with the hacker, me losing my page, them not doing things about it. I emailed him and I started watching the development of this story and the way they've handled it. They've really come forward with a lot of facts, a lot of receipts, and honestly, well done on their part. And because of them speaking on it, actually things are being done. So this particular story is about a former vlog member by the name of Seth. And there was a skit, a prank that was being set up where Seth was aware that they were going to do a skit for David's vlog, right? But this is where things take a complete left turn. Seth was under the assumption that he was going to be in a skit where he was going to be making out with this girl who was a member of the Vlog Squad by the name of Corinna, right? Seth, okay, let me slow down because I want to make sure you guys are getting the right information. So, boom. David shooting a vlog. Jason is the accomplice. Corinna was supposed to be the person that Seth was supposed to kiss because that was the bit. They were going to do a dream segment where Seth was going to be kissing Corinna, or he believed that he was going to be kissing Corinna underneath a mask that makes you look like an old man. But what he did not know was David and Jason planned to make a switch and have Jason wear the old man mask so that when it was time for Seth to kiss Corinna, or who he believed would be Corinna underneath the mask, he was actually going to be kissing Jason. Now, for most people, they're going to look at that prank and be like, oh, that's funny, harmless enough. But here is where it's different, and it takes, for me, a more sinister turn to the prank. Now, I'm going to be inserting a clip of where David and Jason talk about the prank that they placed on Seth and why they felt that this prank was particularly going to be funny because Seth just so happens to be from Compton. And in Compton, homosexuality isn't well received. So for me, they were having a joke on Seth's expense, not fully understanding the severity of what that means and the deep-rooted pain and history for our Black men in particular who live in these areas that are impoverished or not the best. You know what? Let me stop sugarcoating it. They knew that Seth was from the hood and that him kissing a man was not going to be acceptable. They clearly stated that he was going to get a lot of slack for it, and they made a joke of Seth at his expense. And Seth wasn't in on the joke. So they went ahead and did it, and when it was time for Seth to kiss who he believed was Corinna underneath the mask, it was actually Jason. And what was more sick about it is that David encouraged Seth to really go for it, to really make out. He exploited the fact that Seth had an attraction for Corinna, used that as a tool to manipulate the situation and get what he wanted, which was the shot. And he clearly says it. I'm going to go ahead and insert the video right here where David and Jason are talking about the prank. And when you hear it, it's sort of like disgusting the way they laugh about it and they just think that it's the funniest thing.
Oh, let's talk about this. What really made me happy.
What?
Today, we pulled a prank on my friend Seth.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah. And now you can talk about it.
It's probably the best prank I've ever pulled on anyone, in my opinion. We have this scary mask that we've been pranking people with, and it's just a scary mask, and everyone knows that it's a mask. And I told Seth, hey man, I want to do this bit. It's like a dream sequence where you make out with the mask guy, and it just looks like you're dreaming and you're making out with an old man because the mask makes you look like an old man. And I'm like, Corinna's going to be in it, and Corinna's a girl in my vlogs, and he thinks Corinna's really attractive. So
Corinna's kind of like the hot girl in David's vlogs.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, I'm totally down. And I'm like, yeah, Seth, just don't hold back. You can make out as much as you want, have as much tongue as you want. Just keep kissing her. But what Seth didn't know is that I replaced Corinna with Jason. So Jason was under the mask. And everyone in the room's like, this isn't going to work.
Everyone doubted you. Yeah.
Everyone, yeah. Brandon, Corinna, like, this isn't going to work. This is stupid.
Because of the size difference.
Because of the size
about
difference.
6 feet and Corinna's about 5'6".
And then the bit starts going, and Seth is there sitting on the couch. Jason walks in as Corinna. He's not speaking, obviously. Sits next to her. Seth leans in, and as he's leaning in, I'm like, fuck yeah, I got it. It's game over. It's in the bag.
I sit down, I put my hand on Seth's knee, and I put my hand behind his back and start rubbing his back and squeezing his knee. And then he
just leans in and just goes at it.
I slip him the tongue first.
Like with tongue, they start making out. And at this point, we're like 5 seconds in, and I'm like, this is it. This is what I wanted. I got what I wanted. I'm out. Like, we can end this. And I'm like, Seth, like, I'm ready to tell him.
He's coming now. He's coming into my mouth with his tongue so hard.
You could tell his tongue is.
Did he grab my ass?
He grabbed your ass. He grabs Jason's ass because he thinks it's Corinna. At this point, the poor dude probably has a boner. And he's really making out with Jason. And I'm like, Seth. And I'm trying to get him to stop, but he thinks it's part of the bit. And he keeps going for 25 seconds. Literally, I'm not over-exaggerating. It's in the vlog. 25 seconds making out with this guy. And I'm like, I think I looked up to the ceiling and I'm like, God, what did I do to deserve such beauty?
And I'm sitting there going, David, call it, please. Please, just call it, David. Bring Corinna in. Jason, it's going on, and it is so aggressive. Like,
they're making out like super aggressive. And then I call Corinna into the room, and Corinna's standing right next to me. And then I'm like, Seth. And then Seth finally lets up after 25 seconds of making out with Jason. and he sees Corinna, and he just fucking loses it.
Yeah, it was
It
great.
was my favorite
You
thing.
can't fake that. You know,
It was just-
it wouldn't be something you could ever fake.
It was so perfect, and I feel so bad, and it's awful because the poor guy had to go through that, and his friends are probably going to chew him out for that for the next 3-5 years of his life.
Well, as Seth tells it, the homosexuality is not so accepted in where he comes from.
Seth's from Compton.
Dudes kissing dudes is not so accepted.
Seth's from Compton, so it's the perfect,
At least straight dudes kissing
it's literally
straight
the
dudes.
perfect setup. A guy from Compton, and I made him make out with another older man.
It's good for
25
Seth.
seconds. Yeah.
It gets him some airtime and
Seth was really,
gets him initiated into the vlog.
he was as angry as he could have been.
Since the video surfaced, Seth clearly was upset and asked David to remove the video. David refused to move the video, knowing that Seth was going to get backlash for it, being that Seth is a black man from Compton. And that's important to this story because historically, our black and brown men have received the brunt end of life's harsh realities in all forms and aspects. And Jason and David being, let's be quite honest, privileged white males that are heterosexual, they don't know or they don't understand or lack the empathy to even fathom the deep-rooted history and pain that our black and brown men experience.
My late teen years when I was at university were times that were really life and death related times for people my age and people from my background. At that time, being black could get me killed, not just lynched, but I could disappear between campus and home, coming home, just out in the countryside. Being gay could get me killed. Of course, we all knew what gay bashing was, and there was certain accomplishments to doing that. And one of the responses to finding out someone was gay was to spotlight that person and penalize them, and the penalty could go up to and include death.
We live in a society that clearly defines who we're expected to be by our gender. And if you're a man, you're put into this box of what it means to be a man and what defines your masculinity. Men are not supposed to show emotion. They're not supposed to cry. And especially if you're from the hood, men are not supposed to kiss men. And the reason why this stuck out to me is because me being an Afro-Latina trans woman who grew up in Brownsville, which is the hood, which is completely projects, growing up in the 90s, there was no language for transgendered. So back then, I was a boy. To them, I was a boy trying to be a girl. I was a homo, I was gay, and I was a FAG, you know the rest. And it wasn't well received. I got my ass beat and handed to me constantly because the fact that I was different and I didn't fit that frame of what it meant to be a man. And unless you grew up in the hood and you understand that it's different, the hood doesn't operate the way the rest of the world operates, okay? And I shared a story about a couple of my friends that grew up in Harlem or grew up in Queens. And even though it's still in New York, these are different boroughs. Things run differently in different places, especially in the hood. Like, you have a reputation, and in the hood and in these areas like Compton or Brownsville, your reputation, the way people perceive you, is not just how they see you, it's your safety net. If you branch off of what is expected of you, you now become a target, and it can quickly turn left and put you in a very dangerous situation.
o'clock Sunday morning. Police say the two left Langston's, a gay bar, and stopped into the Crown Fried Chicken to eat. That's when, unprovoked, this unidentified man made anti-gay remarks, said, "I'm going to shoot this place up." He then took out a sharp object and slashed one of the men in the face. He went outside and stabbed another man twice in the torso and shoulder, making more anti-homophobic slurs.
Tell me what happened.
So he hit me right here in the jaw, fracturing it.
He has asked us to conceal his face and not reveal his identity. This 27-year-old social services worker from Brooklyn, now hospitalized with a fractured jaw, attacked and beaten, he says, because he is gay.
Yeah, so I'm actually really grateful that I'm alive right now.
Speaking to me from his hospital bed, he recounted for me the entire frightening story. He says it happened here on the corner of Fulton Street and Franklin Avenue on Saturday at 4 in the morning. That inside this nearby fried chicken place, a group of 6 to 8 people were hurling anti-gay slurs at another group inside the restaurant.
How scary was this?
I think I was more shocked than anything.
He says he had just come out of this nearby nightclub with a friend who heard the commotion and had run over to try to break up the argument and defuse the situation, which had spilled out onto the street. The victim tells me he followed to check on his friend. And that's when he says this man, seen in surveillance video, started spewing anti-gay slurs at him and then punched him in the face, fracturing his jaw.
It's a very traumatic situation, and I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
The suspect then took off and has yet to be apprehended.
The NYPD tells us the attack is now being investigated as a possible hate crime.
Other people were screaming homophobic epithets and slurs, and also death threats like, do you want to die tonight, and things like that.
He now faces surgery, having his jaw reset and wired shut at the hands of this man, a man he didn't know, a complete stranger. Scott Rappaport, CBS 2 News.
And what's crazy is that Seth is not even gay. Seth is not even gay. But had he been, not understanding how it wasn't so long ago that men were being killed for being gay.
New York raided the Stonewall Bar, beating the gay men who had gathered inside and helping ignite the gay rights movement in the U.S. A few years later in New Orleans, an arsonist set fire to a gay bar, killing 32 people inside. Some local churches refused to bury the victims. Attacks on various scales continued for years. And just 2 years ago, on New Year's Eve, an arsonist in Seattle set fire to the steps of a club hosting more than 700 people, many of them local LGBT leaders. The fire was quickly put out, and no one was injured. There have also been countless attacks on individuals. Harvey Milk was San Francisco's first openly gay city councilman. In 1978, he was gunned down by a colleague, whose light prison sentence prompted these riots 1 year later. And in 1998, Matthew Shepard, the 21-year-old Wyoming student, was beaten, then hanged on a fence in an open field and left to die.
So to then, in return, make a joke about it and pull a prank knowing that he was going to receive backlash from it and still had no regard for it. And even though he asked for them to remove the video, they didn't. And because of that, Seth had to relocate his whole entire life, had to move into a whole different state because of it. The world is sort of ran in a disgusting way. So unless you've grown up in these sort of areas, you don't know how it is. You don't know what it means to be from one of those areas. And for them to make so lightly of it, clearly, they've missed the mark on what's been going on in this world, and they have no care whatsoever. No care whatsoever. I speak from personal existence, me being an Afro-Latina trans woman from Brownsville, Brooklyn. And the reason why I say that is because we live in a day and age that we don't get to love who we want to love freely. And as a trans woman, I have had to deal with that reality that sometimes it is not okay for a man to kiss anything other than what the world expects him to kiss, right? So I understand the DL culture. The DL meaning down low. Down low meaning that especially for our Black and brown brothers, there's that strong societal pressure to be a man that if they branch off and be anything other, they are going to be ostracized, cast out, and their sexuality questioned. And I've been on the receiving end of that backlash. I've multiple times have been a secret because men are not able to freely love me openly in fear of others finding out and what that might mean for them. Okay? So I don't understand how we still live in this world not understanding that it doesn't matter how much education, it doesn't matter how much progression that we think is being made. There's still pockets in this world that operate in a different way. It doesn't matter how many rights you have over here, but over here, you ain't got those. It don't work that way. It don't. It just simply doesn't. And as a trans woman, I've had to deal with that stigma and that shame that men feel when they are attracted to me. I've had men physically assault me, choke me up, and yoke me up and tell me if anybody is to ever find out that I kissed you, was with you, that I speak to you, I will kill you. I will kill you because I have a reputation, I have a family, and it is not acceptable where I'm from to be doing this. And there has been too many. There has been way too many. 2019, 2020, and 2021. I've had to sit back and watch so many of my trans sisters' lives being taken by senseless acts of hate because and at the hands of men who are so afraid of being discovered, of people finding out that they love who they love, that fear drives them to commit these senseless acts of hate.
A lot of transgender, especially Black females, are being murdered, but it's not like it just happened. It's been an ongoing thing for years.
Year after year, the violence against the trans community continues to be disturbing. As of today, at least 16 trans and gender non-conforming individuals have been killed, many of whom are Black transgender women. Last year alone, we saw 26 transgender and gender non-conforming people killed. What are your thoughts when you hear these numbers and these stories?
It's really cringy. Like, it's like I'm not gonna say that I'm fearful of my life, but it does kind of put a weight on me. Like, I need to be extra cautious. And New Jersey don't have a self-defense law, so if something happened to me and I was to, have a protective, like a taser or a knife or something, it's just like I'll get in trouble for that, even though I was in the wrong, like being harmed, So it's kind of scary.
The Human Rights Campaign, which has been tracking these violent deaths, estimates that 4 in 5 of all anti-transgender homicides are trans women of color.
we're seeing the second highest spike over a certain amount of time, even in the midst of a quarantine. Again, it shows just the heightened level of violence perpetuated against trans individuals, and it just doesn't make sense.
What I want David and Jason to understand about the joke that they've pulled is that joke right there is perpetuating, and it is putting out this sort of shame that a man must feel, that embarrassment that a man has to go through when he kisses anything other than a female, or what the world perceives to be a female. So you're further enforcing that narrative of shame, embarrassment, and guilt. And you simply did it for entertainment, not understanding how deeply rooted in pain, how this is still going on. To take a man and put him in a situation where his sexuality is going to be put into question could have had a completely adverse effect than they would have expected. But that's the thing. People make jokes at expenses of others, not understanding the bigger picture, because they sit in a place of privilege and lack the understanding of anything other than their own existence. I'm here to tell you, as a person who have experienced violence towards me from men who live their lives in fear of ever being discovered that they had any relations towards me. I'm here to tell you that jokes like that are detrimental. They're counterproductive to what so many of us are trying to fight and overcome and break the stigma and the shame that especially our brown and black community feels for loving who they want to love. And the irony of it is that Seth is not even gay. And they knew that. And that's why they thought that it was that much more funny. So here's what I have to say to David and to Jason. Think before you do, and understand that you have a platform that a lot of people watch, right? Think about the message that you're sending across. You putting out a prank video of a man kissing a man, you're further enforcing that narrative that means that kissing a man is something to be ashamed of, is something to be embarrassed of, and is something to make fun of and to mock. And I'm here to tell you that that isn't funny. I've lived in a world, I live in a world where it is not okay for a man to kiss me. I live in a world that if a man was to kiss me and people know that openly, his sexuality is going to come into question, his manhood is going to come into question, and possibly his reputation and his family can crumble just like that. We need to do better. You need to do better.
LGBTs are now more likely to be targets of hate crimes than any other minority group in the U.S. The real number, some analysts say, may be even higher because many in the closet LGBT people fear reporting attacks, or because police often fail to pass along that information to federal authorities.
That's just my 2 cents. This is just how I feel about it. And I think that Seth's situation goes deeper than just this. There's layers upon layers of just systematic oppression and deep-rooted pain in there. And I don't condone or approve of it in any way. You should never make a joke like that, especially in this day and age. Ever, really. So, on that note, I'm going to be more vocal about just trans issues, trans rights, and use my platform for advocacy and bring awareness to just what's really going on in this world. So until next time, bendiciones.